Thank you for asking us. It's very nice.
Okay, Dan, I'm preparing to get us on live everywhere. Give me just a minute and we'll be ready to start.
Thank you for asking us. It's very nice.
Mr. Corman, I'm ready when you are.
Let's rock and roll. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 2020 series, Manufacturing here. This is the La Plata County Economic Development Alliance's twist in lieu of our economic summit that we do every year. We've decided to go into a web series, and this series is about manufacturing. Thank you so much for being here. And we just want to start off by saying happy holidays. We hope that you're faring well, that you're healthy and weathering the storm as best as possible. We know this has been the weirdest year on record, and you know, the emotion level and the stress levels are through the roof. So thanks again for staying strong and being here today. We have an incredible lineup for you. We have some speakers that are going to speak to many different aspects of manufacturing, but we'll also touch, you know, every corner of the business sector with some of this information. So without further ado, my name is Dan Corman. I'm the owner broker of Alpenglow Properties, but also vice chair of the Local Economic Development Alliance Board. And we have our first speaker ready to go. Heidi, are you here with us? So
I'm here.
There she is. All right. So Heidi is a pioneer in the additive food manufacturing industry. She's become a catalyst for growth and development in an emerging industry and has contributed to an exceptional amount of the economic development of the state of Colorado. She has garnered an outstanding reputation in the additive manufacturing industry for leadership through integrity and has been integral to the growth of Foutzen Tool as vice president over the last 15 years. And I apologize, I threw in the word food. It's just additive. In 2015, Heidi worked with Ball Aerospace, Lockheed Martin, and the Colorado School of Mines to establish ADAPT, the Alliance for the Development of Additive Processing Technologies. The ADAPT Center at the Colorado School of Mines has become a world-class characterization center for additive materials. Heidi is currently an industry board chair for ADAPT and is the director of the Northern Colorado Manufacturing Partnership. Please welcome Heidi Hotstetter. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you for that introduction. Goodness gracious, I don't deserve all that. So today we're going to talk about a couple of products that came out of the COVID Manufacturing Task Force. And I want to just briefly explain who that is, who that was. Back in March, when everybody's world went upside down, Dan and Emily, we pulled together a group of manufacturers. And one of the things we pretty immediately did as a group, along with Manufacturers Edge on this call today, is we took non-essential manufacturing. It was all very crazy then. We didn't know who was essential, who wasn't. And we tried to make them relevant and essential through pivoting some of their operations and creating PPE, because at the time there was a huge need for that. And we specifically made that more of a philanthropic effort, if you will. PPE, face respirators that went out to nonprofits, homeless shelters, domestic violence shelters, folks that wouldn't have had access to, you know, these consumable products. And we wanted to keep our communities safe. So we did that, and we kept some manufacturers in business, is the reality of that. Now, fast forward many months into May timeframe, and that same group of people developed three products, two of which we'll speak up to today, which was the Pivot Assessment and Patch Program, and also the COVID Safety System. So stick a pin in the COVID safety system because I think we get to that later on. Is that correct, Dan? So Emily, if we go to the next slide. So what is Pivot? This group of people came together and said it's basically a fundamental pivot or change of direction in your business, right? That could be for a whole menagerie of reasons. It could be because one particular piece of business is outperforming another. It could be because the business isn't doing financially well. I think this next point is a big one. The market didn't behave as you had anticipated, forecasted. Nothing about this year has been something we would have forecasted as business owners. Competitors have an advantage over you, or just in general, you're looking for something different, right? So next slide. We try to simplify this. This chevron might seem overwhelming. And in this day and age where things are really complicated for business leaders, it's very simple for us. We phase this approach out. There's a planning phase, which starts with just a discussion. Are you interested? What are you looking for? What are the time requirements involved? We go through that at what we call the pre-pivot stage. Then we go into phase one, which is really identifying opportunities. And Emily, I'm gonna screw you up here because I'm gonna ask you to go to the next slide now and then come back to this. Okay, so this is from a client that we worked with the Edge on and also the warehouse out of Northern Colorado. And this particular client, we went in at that phase one where we're identifying opportunities and we identified 6. This is just a sample offering of what that might look like in the report out. Now, again, this is one slide. This is not indicative of the entire 30-page report that we gave them, really going into the details. But for example, we went in and we saw that they had a ton of underutilized equipment. We happened to know that there was a TAM for that, an attainable market. So we're increasing the revenue with the current infrastructure that they have. We're not asking them to make any more of a capital investment. We're showing them what the TAM is, and by default, we're helping them diversify into some markets that they weren't currently in. Along with other partners, Manufacturers Edge and Lockheed Martin, they, during the PPE process, had produced about 9 different products that they came to us and said, hey, if you find manufacturers that can get this to the next phase, we'll work with you on that. So that was a part of our process as well. So if you go back, Emily, I'm running out of time here, but you'll see, then we go into strategic decision making with the leadership and then possibly, potentially a full business case. If you guys want to talk more about that, certainly feel free to contact myself or anyone at Manufacturers Edge and we'll give you more details on it.
Very, very interesting. I mean, the way people are pivoting and changing, it's amazing to see. And I apologize that we could probably listen to that for another half hour to hear all the different ways things are changing. But alas, we have a huge list of people that are going to speak today and everybody gets about 5 minutes. So thank you again, Heidi. That was wonderful. Our next speaker today is Betsy Fitzpatrick, a beautiful Scottish name, but she's here locally with StoneAge, and she's going to talk about how they've succeeded through this whole year and ways they've changed their model in order to be successful. Please welcome Betsy Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Heidi. That was really good information. What I'd like to do today is just show a couple of success stories that we've had at StoneAge. And so I love this theme of pivoting because I really feel like that is exactly what we've all had to do since March. And some of us have had some success with it and others are struggling. So my goal would be that maybe these stories would either inspire you or resonate in some way with ways that you could also pivot within your own business challenges that we're all still facing. So we have a couple of case studies at StoneAge that have taken place this year. One of them is our training program. So those of you who are familiar with our business probably know us as manufacturers of high pressure water blast equipment, and that is our core business. But to support that business, we also have a robust training program that came into being pretty recently. And the training program was designed not so much to generate revenue as to support our tools by educating our consumers in safe practices, best practices, and most effective technologies. So originally this was designed to be in-person live training, and that's how we were delivering it pre-pandemic. And so we had to pivot. And so what we did is we redesigned our training program. So we actually decided that we would create a lot more virtual content than we had originally planned to do. We used to travel the whole world. And so StoneAge has customers all over the globe in 50 different countries. And obviously that was no longer possible. So in order to get a quick solution to provide the operators of our equipment with training and also certification that they may need to do their jobs, we created a whole library of virtual training and certification. We redirected some personnel to focus on those activities. And we set up a live studio in our warehouse. So we actually have the old Wasati building, if you're familiar with the greater Durango Air Park metropolitan area, as it were. So we have the old Wasati building, and mostly it's used for storage, but we quickly converted it to an ad hoc production studio. And we do filming there, and we even do live training with a real trainer in real time so that the participants, wherever they are in the world, can ask questions and can have multiple angles watching the real-time demonstration of maintenance and setup of our equipment. So that has been a hugely successful program for us. We've had customers embrace the virtual methods. It's far more popular than we even anticipated. And we have virtually trained and certified over 100 operators in Europe, in the Middle East, on every continent except Antarctica. So Antarctica's next, we hope. So that's been a huge success story for us. And because of that, our training program has actually become an unexpected revenue generation area for us. So that's a plus and a silver lining to that pivot. And then the second pivot I wanted to share real quick is just a little more sort of mundane. And this has to do with just maintaining operations of an essential business at a time when it's not easy to do that. So in order to manufacture our products, there are a lot of functions that have to take place on site. And so we wanted to have everyone who could safely and effectively do so work from home, but we also have people who have to come on site in order to operate our CNC machining equipment, or to assemble the tools, to quality check the tools, to assemble the tools, to put them in boxes and ship them around the world. And so what we've done are a number of things that weren't a huge economic outlay, but have created a lot of safety. So we've created cohorts among our workforce, much like the 9R school district has done with students. We have people in segregated work areas. We have big plastic sheeting that separates the areas. There are separate entrances, a designated bathroom, coffee pot, etc., for each of those cohorts. And then we've provided loads and loads of PPE, been really aggressive about making sure that employees have everything they need to stay safe in the course of doing their duties on site. As a result of that, and we take very quick action if someone is exposed, we've been able to not close down any essential functions this year so far, knock on wood. And also we've had people who needed to come back on site even if their work could be done from home because of technology issues. And so we've been able to pivot a bit and bring some people back on site who needed to do that in order to do their jobs efficiently. I think I'm out of time, but I'm more than happy to talk about those features with any of you who might benefit from knowing more about what we've done. Thank
Betsy,
you.
thank you so much. And StoneAge continues to be such an incredible business here locally. I know they pride themselves on being a local business that is a huge international business. I believe you will get to Antarctica someday. Something else, I don't know if you guys know this, but they pivoted into the IoT realm too. Yeah, you're really heavy into the Internet of Things, which is so cool, and can't wait to see what else you guys are doing. For anybody who's attending this webinar, please feel free to put your questions in the chat or Q&A section. We can get to them at the end. We will have time for Q&A at the end. And if you're thinking of something that's pressing, go ahead and write it to me directly or in the Q&A section. So our next speaker needs no introduction. He's a super local by any means. His name is Jim Mackay, and he's the CEO of SCA Fab. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you. I was going to talk about some of the pivots that we've been doing, but I think that telling a story about how our customers pivot is probably a better approach for today. Just as background, SCA Fabricating, we are not the brewery, and we are in the business of providing equipment that breweries use, primarily breweries, but we also sell outside of beer, but that people who are putting drinks into cans or bottles, what they use to be able to push those empty cans and bottles into the filling machine and then to be able to process those on the other side. We've got about 2,500 customers worldwide. Betsy, we're not in Antarctica either, if it makes you feel any better. As I said, you know, most of our customers actually put product into cans. Now, cans as a means of being able to get your drink to market have been on a growth curve for some time now. We've seen the prevalence of cans. I'm sure you've all noticed that more and more beer is available in cans, particularly from craft brewers. It's at the point now where about 60% of beer sales in North America are in cans, about 30% is in bottles, and then about 10% is in kegs. You know, and it's for good reason. I mean, cans are infinitely recyclable, and they've developed a technology where they spray the inside of these cans now with a particular layer. It's a very, very thin layer that masks the taste of the aluminum from the actual beer itself. And I feel like it's a better taste than you can actually even get from a bottle. So with this trend moving towards cans, you know, another thing that happened, of course, is COVID, and the byproduct of COVID across the world, really, but also, you know, very strong in North America, was that bars, restaurants, and places where you could go and congregate and drink essentially shut down. So when you come back to that mix where we had about 10% of the business being in kegs, the keg business literally disappeared overnight. That left all of these brewers with the challenge of what it is they do with that beer and how it is that they essentially take advantage of the shortfall of that part of the market, because that's also a very high margin. So even the ones that had not gone to cans started scrambling and trying to find a way to get their beer into cans, which has been very, very good for our business. We're seeing just explosive growth this year and trying to keep up to these guys. And our pivot in this case, by the way, was to come out with another product line to be able to address even faster and smoother getting product into cans. But the byproduct of this, combined with the growth that we're already seeing in aluminum cans, is that we now face a worldwide can shortage. We're at the point where, for instance, in the USA alone, this year, we probably are going to fall about 10 billion cans short of what it is that we need to be able to get this product out there. There are really two huge can suppliers. One is Crown, one is Ball, and there's some kind of a bunch of medium can suppliers. Ball Corporation, for instance, they've added lines this year in Rome, Georgia, Fort Worth, Texas, a couple of other places to increase capacity. They're bringing a new plant online in Pennsylvania in 2021. They feel like by 2025, they'll be putting out another 45 billion cans in order to address this need. Some of the brewers that I've seen get creative around this shortage are even our local folks at SCA Brewing in Durango. I'm sure those of you who like Mexican lager in the summer probably noticed that the label on your cans looked a little funny. It was actually peelable. And if you peeled off that label, you found that it was actually a can that had originally been labeled for another one of SCA's beers. That's because people are scrambling to go back through their inventory of unused cans, or maybe they're refining and slimming down their product line and not canning a particular type of beer. So they're relabeling those cans so that they can get them out to market to address the shortage in supply. So a lot of creativity going on to be able to get this product out there to the market. And unfortunately, another bad thing is that cans, despite their recyclability, collection rates in the United States are really down around 50%, which is pretty sad that 50% of the cans, empty cans, end up in our landfills. They are working on deposit legislation. I think we will find very quickly here that we're paying a nickel a can and getting a nickel back when we return them. So lots being done to address this can shortage. I think that once we get past this and the capacity comes back, we're going to see nothing but additional growth, which in the end helps Scott Fabricating because we have more and more customers who want to buy equipment to put the beer in the cans. Okay. Thanks for your time.
So insightful. And I'm sure a lot of people are wondering why stickers were on their cans, had no idea that there was an aluminum shortage. And I mean, the numbers are unfathomable. So thank you so much for the insight, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay. This brings us to our kind of center of the sandwich for the day. We have Tom. Now, I'm going to butcher this. Bunitz?
Close enough. Close enough, Dan.
He's the CEO of Manufacturers Edge. He has over 35 years of broad experience in strategic planning, operations, and financial oversight. Most recently, Tom was a senior executive for Colorado, a manufacturer of cutting-edge green air conditioning systems that grew from 5 to over 60 employees during his tenure. As founder and president of the Beta Group, Inc., Tom has advised corporate and government clients across the globe for 25 years in business strategy development, cross-organizational team building, and management processes and organizational redesign. Tom has also co-authored a widely adopted book on business strategy and capital planning for technology, now in its 3rd edition of printing, which is so cool. Hopefully you can tell us a little bit about that, but also he brought his team with us. He'll introduce those team members as well. Please welcome Tom. I want you to say your name for because I should have asked before we started.
Well, as the gate agent at United once said, it's pronounced just like it sounds. Okay, which I thought was a good way to say it. But it's just read it, Dan. It's Bugnitz. And you got to remember that anybody who grows up through grade school and high school with a name like that, there's no mispronunciation you can do that's anywhere near as bad as what kids did intentionally. So
thanks for being so gracious about it. Welcome.
Absolutely. Hey, Dan, just a quick point of order: is our whole team 5 minutes, or is it a little
you have
longer?
10 minutes, sir.
10 minutes. Okay, so I'll get through this very quickly and turn it over to the people that actually know what's going on.
Tom, will you turn your camera on, please?
I thought you guys controlled that. I'm sorry. Let's see. Okay, my apologies. Is that on?
Yes, thank you.
For those who don't know, Manufacturers Edge is a nonprofit. We were based in Denver, but as part of the pandemic, we actually have closed our offices because at that point it was an expensive storage unit because we weren't using it. So we're part of the U.S. Department of Commerce funded program called the Manufacturing Extension Partnership, which Cindy Nowak is going to tell you about in a while. I would just frame our comments as saying that what we've seen in manufacturers is everything from how do you actually manage two shifts when you used to be one and you've split your people up, all the way to what I think of as very serious mental health challenges that some manufacturers have faced because of the stresses of the pandemic, childcare issues, all the things we talk about and know about. So we've seen an enormous number of things that we would never have thought we would be dealing with ever. And so I think later on, Anne Marie and Juan Emilio will tell us about that. So I'm going to turn it over right now to Jessica, who's kind of our producer for these kind of things. Jessica is going to give us the lay of the land of how we're going to work. And then I think Cindy and Anne Marie are going to talk to us. Jessica, would you mind taking over?
Thank you, Tom. I'm Jessica Cowden, the Director of Marketing and Communications for Manufacturers Edge. As Tom mentioned, we do cover the entire state of Colorado as part of a national network. And our entire mission is simply to help manufacturers in whatever way we possibly can. So obviously this year that's taken on a slightly different shape and form than it usually does. I can always be reached at our info@manufacturersedge.com email address. Please reach out to us at any time. Specifically in the La Plata County area though, Our regional director, Cindy Nowak, actually oversees those accounts. And so she's going to be your main point of contact. So I would like to introduce her next, and she's going to go through a couple of slides to further illustrate who we are and what we do and how we do it. Thank you so much. Cindy?
Thanks, Jessica. I appreciate that. My name's Cindy Nowak. I'm a regional director for Southern Colorado, and I've been with Manufacturers Edge about 11 years. And some of you may know me, some of you may have known Michael Ward, but he's no longer with us, and I'm back working in Southern Colorado. But I wanted to go over who we are and what we do. So as Tom and Jessica mentioned, we are under the U.S. Department of Commerce and NIST, and we have a nationwide network of manufacturing extension partnerships around the U.S. Each of us have a different name, but we have resources and access to expertise throughout the U.S. As you can see, there's over 51 centers in all states and Puerto Rico. We have over 1,400 advisors and manufacturing experts, which gives us access to technology, resources, training, and offerings that we can help bring to our Colorado manufacturers. And we also have nearly 2,100 service providers and partners. So our reach is not just Colorado, but it's nationwide. So we do coaching, consulting, training, education, just about anything a manufacturer may need. And we also conduct events, we sponsor events, we work very closely with our legislators, and we volunteer on committees, boards, and task forces. So we're very involved in the local communities as well. Next slide, please. So these are some resources, local, state, federal agencies, manufacturing institutes, community colleges, trade associations like CAMA. We have partnerships with all of these entities to help serve the manufacturers in Colorado. Okay, next slide. So the way we work with manufacturers is we will meet with you and conduct an assessment that basically is a business assessment of your entire organization. And actually, it's an assessment that you and your team will assess your organization, and it covers strategy, your processes, your people, your structure, your metrics, your quality systems, and cybersecurity. And from that assessment, we will conduct a report out and identify the gaps in your organization. And then we help to bring resources and expertise to help you identify those gaps and help you close those gaps and help solve those issues and help you grow your organization. We then we also bring consultants, training, expertise to you. And as a result of our projects that we do, there's a third-party assessment that we're held accountable to NIST and through the U.S. Department of Commerce. So NIST gives us a scorecard, and we are measured on whether we increase your sales, decrease your overhead, whether we create jobs or whether we save jobs. And out of that assessment, we keep our federal funding based on that scorecard, and then so we basically work from that assessment and to improve ourselves at Manufacturers Edge. So it sets us apart from other consulting companies because we are held accountable for the work that we do with manufacturers. So we will work with you for the long term. We develop roadmaps for your organization. And I think the next slide will show you all the different areas that we can help a business. So basically, from ISO certification to your people systems, technology, strategy, supply chain, risk mitigation, cybersecurity, lean management systems. Just if a manufacturer does it, we can help. We are the go-to resource to help your organizations. So if you have a question or need assistance, basically call us and we can help solve the issues for you. Okay, next slide. So out of that assessment that NIST asks manufacturers to complete after a project, the last 10 years, manufacturers have reported $1.59 billion in increased and retained sales, $231 million in cost savings, $451 million in investments in their plant, their workforce, their IT, and new products. And we have helped create or save over 6,000 jobs over the last 10 years just in Colorado alone. And again, this was reported by manufacturers that we've worked with over the last 10 years. And I think that's pretty impressive, and it's something I think that we're pretty proud of. So we would love to help. We would love to help you, and my contact information is probably in the invite, or you can ask Emily for it, or it's on our website. So I'm happy to reach out and help you in any way. So I think I went pretty fast, but Dan, that's about it. So you're on mute, Dan.
Thank you. It was really well said what I just said, so I'll try to repeat it. Thank you so much for being here. It's an incredible thing to see how much Manufacturer's Edge has had an impact. And so thank you for all that you guys are doing. We are moving right along. We have a couple more folks from Manufacturer's Edge. We have Anne-Marie Younts, as well as Juan Emilia Aranda. Anne-Marie has more than 20 years of experience in management, quality, and continuous improvement, lean manufacturing, and training. She has worked the last 8 years in a high volume manufacturing environment for 2 companies producing industrial and consumer metal packaging solutions. Juan Emilio Aranda brings over 20 years of high-tech manufacturing and management experience from the semiconductor industry. Please welcome those guys, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Dan. Good morning. I am, Anne-Marie Younts from Manufacturer's Edge. I'm the Director of Client Services. Just wanted to talk you through some of the examples of some of the work we've done with our clients. Initially, when COVID started back in March, April, we have been working with our clients on getting them the most up-to-date information, whether that's from the Colorado Health Department, how to navigate the data, how to understand the dial system, any updates, letting them know what is in the requirements from the state of Colorado and how those requirements can be interpreted. And then as well on the second page, we also have information from other resources such as the CDC, et cetera. And so this is a document that we can share. And again, it's just throughout this process, we've been working with our clients on making sure they understand what the requirements are from the public health department, how can they implement those requirements, and then how do they understand the information and the data. But more specifically, utilizing some of our tools, some cases or some of our clients we've worked with looking at their strategy. what was their strategy a year ago, and how those short-term objectives, long-term objectives may need to change, how their plans, strategic plans may need to change, how their actions need to change. And so we've utilized our strategic planning tools to help them adjust to some of the bumps in the road that COVID has implemented in our system. So another case of an example is we've used with some of the downsizing or the need to split shifts. We've helped our clients look at accountabilities and how to shift accountabilities in their organization. Some of those are key accountabilities that have to happen. You know, you may not have that employee anymore, or you may need to split it so that things can happen both on day shift and night shift. So we've utilized some of our accountability tools to assist our clients, as well as problem solving. You know, each in this COVID era, this pandemic, we've had, you know, clients with unique problem solving concerns, whether that be maybe decreased quality from the suppliers. And so we help utilizing some of our problem solving tools to help them specifically address their unique issues. And then lastly, kind of on a lighter note, we've even worked with our clients on how to have effective Zoom meetings, or how to work remotely effectively, and offered recommendations that we've learned or picked up from other clients. And so those are some of the tools at the high level, and I'll toss it over to Juan Emilio, and he can talk a little more specifically about how we've helped our clients.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Yes, so I'm an industrial engineer. Lately, we've been working remotely with all our clients. I have here my collection of clients that we've been working with remotely. So I'm basically your virtual industrial engineer. We have clients that are ramping up or getting ready to ramp up, because there's for example, one client that was doing hand sanitizers. So that was like very early in the pandemic. They had to really get going. And the others, perhaps another example is in the food supply equipment. They are getting ready to basically double their output. So what we do is help companies be productive with less resources, because you might have people out or restrictions in the number of people that you can have on site. So we look at things like the floor layout. Can we still meet our distancing and still have a good product flow? Look at things like capacity. Do you have the capacity to ramp up to the levels that you need coming up, and perhaps even avoid some capital expenses if you can squeeze out more output? So we help you understand that. Also, a lot of internal inventory that might stop your production because you don't have the raw material on hand ready to go. So we look at all the inventory adjustments that need to happen within the plant, but also going, incoming from suppliers that want to make sure that we have enough on hand to last us some, at least the lead time of the material, so you can keep running while the stuff is in the mail, if you will. So as much as we can do some low capital or low tech solutions, we try to do that as much as possible. And it's really focused on the industrial engineering. So how can we utilize our resources that we have at hand and really be more productive?
Great one. Thank you so much for being here, guys. If you didn't know, Juan Emilio is bilingual as well, and he is a skilled facilitator, so it could help you in the event you wanted to get your organization put together. Thanks again. We are going to welcome back Heidi Hostetter. She's going to speak a little bit more about safety certification systems and how to identify and address gaps in your facilities. Welcome back, Heidi.
Thanks, Dan. This is exciting because this next product we're going to talk about, I just want to say La Plata County, the jail, the courthouse Durango Home Services and the Senior Center helped us pilot this product to learn what we knew and what we didn't know. So when this all started, what we realized is that companies were doing their best, but they didn't necessarily know what the federal regs were, what the state regs were, what the local municipality regs were. They were trying to keep their facilities compliant, but they also didn't have the bandwidth to keep up with all that. So I don't want, again, I want to keep this simple. We came out of that COVID task force with a COVID safety audit and certification program. There's 4 different pillars to this program. And really, step 1 is a pre-audit. What does the client want to achieve? What do they need help with? This is also where we would talk about things like, you know, how many buildings do you have? What's the square footage? You know, are there any behavioral issues as a third party we can help with when we come in? Things like this. So that voice of customer then feeds into pillar 2, which is going to be the actual audit and gap assessment. I'd like to note we do these steps 1 and 2 along with our partners Manufacturers Edge as well. That's a recent partnership, so we're excited about that. But in this audit and gap assessment, again, we're going in, we're identifying and looking at the things that were brought to our attention in that phase 1, but we're also saying, okay, based on all of these regs, which there end up, depending on the industry, being somewhere between 48 and 79. And again, I won't go into that rabbit hole, but 48 to 79 pieces of criteria that each facility is scored on. And let's just real quickly go to the next slide, Emily. I hop around a lot. Okay, this is important because in that section, that phase 2, we do a 1 to 5 scale. 1 unsafe, 5 is certifiably safe, okay? That criteria was actually worked upon with public health, specifically Boulder County Public Health. And the reason I point that out is if you look at all the different municipalities and you look at them as though they're a tolerance, Boulder County is pretty tight. They're way over here on the far end of that pendulum. So we thought if we base this criteria off Boulder County regs and have them kind of work with us on weighing these scores, it should come out, you know, it should come out pretty reasonably. So again, it's a 1 to 5. We go through, we rate everything in the facility. We work with a team that we're given when we go in. And then the next slide, Emily, you'll get whomever the client is will get a report card like this. It'll outline, you know, your major infractions, your minors, and where you passed. And then again, a very detailed report out of, you know, what those were, what categories they fell into, and then a very clear action plan. Now, if we can go back to, I think it was slide 6, Emily. Great. So the third pillar of that is, are there people within your facility that you would like to have go through the cohort and regulations training? So a lot of companies that we've worked with this far, they have COVID task force. What we're finding is that a lot of times the task force isn't necessarily on site. They're a remote team because they're comprised of leadership. In this particular section, we're asking, hey, identify the people in your facilities that are there that can help you maintain the regs and the cohort tracking and tracing. The other thing we do as a part of phases 2 and 3 is we send out a weekly update. So you won't ever have to do all that research yourself. You'll know immediately, you know, if CDC changed their quarantine regulations, you'll hear that from us every Friday morning at 9 a.m. So that's a part of this process. If you get to a 2.7, let's say, on that ranking scale, you want to get to a 5 so that you can get certified. we take it to that step. That's the final step, but we can do any portion of this for you. There you have it.
Heidi, can you talk to a couple real world scenarios on why this getting a 5 would help a company?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question, Dan. I think at the end of the day, there's a few things happening. One, you want to give your employees, right, a sense of safety. You want to give your consumers a sense of safety. And as the employer, those things are important, but you also need to think about your risk and liability mitigation. So in tort law, there's these categories, right? Recklessness and carelessness. So if you bring in a third party to do something like this, most folks are going to say, okay, if there was a misstep, if you didn't uphold something, it truly was carelessness. It wasn't recklessness. Nobody meant to hurt anybody. Does that answer your question, Dan?
Very much so. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like it's reducing liability and helping people move through into the future. Thank you so much, Heidi. Moving right along. So our next guest is, we just really appreciate him giving his time. Please welcome Tom Monaco of the Office of Economic Development and International Trade, better known as OEDIT. He's going to share some resources that the office is providing these days.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation to be here. Let's go to the next slide. So I'm in the Division of Business Support and Rural Prosperity. It's one of the 7 divisions at OEDIT. So OEDIT is a government agency. Obviously, we're the primary economic development agency for the state of Colorado. Most of the work that we do tends to focus on communities as far as engagement and providing resources, but we also do some stuff to work directly with businesses, whether they're manufacturing or retail. And within our division, we have 4 offices. We have the Minority Business Office, the Small Business Development Center Network, which is a network of 15 regional centers that provide direct support to small businesses. We have an employee ownership network. We're really pushing very hard to promote the idea of employee ownership as a tool for businesses for both growth and survival. And then, of course, we have Rural Prosperity. In the Rural Prosperity Office, that's where I am. I'm what's called a Rural Prosperity. I'm a representative. I cover southern central Colorado, so come over into La Plata County. And what we do is we provide direct resources to those communities because sometimes it can be a little bit disconnected. Next slide, please. So I kind of want to break this down into sort of like three things. Right now we're sort of in survival mode. And so the programs that we have through OEDIT kind of run the gamut from, helping you just kind of keep your business afloat, especially in very uncertain times where we don't really know what the future is going to hold. We have the Climber Loan Fund, which is a program that's going to be coming out in the early part of next year, about $250 million to provide capital loans to small businesses over the next 2 years to basically help preserve those at-risk jobs, working capital. So I think this really kind of directly will be something that could be a really good tool for our manufacturers in the rural parts of the state. Energize Colorado, you're probably familiar with, they did a GAP fund that was primarily funded through OEDIT. And they did a lot of different things when the pandemic hit. They worked very closely with the COVID Manufacturing Task Force that Heidi mentioned to provide PPE and supplies through a marketplace. They do small business mentorship and provide professional services. They work very closely with our SBDC network to help mentor and provide strategic planning for small businesses. So they brought a whole wealth of sort of resources to the table to help augment a lot of things that were already out there. Next slide. So when we talk about, once we come out of this pandemic, which hopefully will be soon, we're going to see a lot of opportunity for growth. One of the things that the state is really focused on is employee ownership. So we have a pilot program for helping businesses convert to employee ownership. We think that it's really a model that's worth exploring for businesses. I know that I think Stone Age Tools, I think you're an employee-owned company, probably one of the most successful that we have. So we're trying to figure out, how do we make that process easier? How do we make Colorado sort of a leader in helping businesses take advantage of all the things that come through an employee ownership model. And then through our other divisions of OEdit, and I'm kind of rushing through this because we do a lot, and we do it across the spectrum. But we have advanced industry grants for manufacturers and businesses that work in different advanced industries. Our creative industries division provides a lot of support to businesses that are in creative industries. Of course, outdoor recreation is a huge industry here in Colorado with a lot of manufacturers that focus in that area. Our global business funding and incentive divisions both provide a lot of resources to our manufacturers to tap into funding and other strategic resources for exportation, things like that. Next slide. So on a community level, the Rural Jumpstart program is something that has really started to see some traction as the legislation has changed for that to open the program and make it a little more versatile for a lot of communities that in the past it really wasn't a good fit for, and provides great tax incentives. It's a great way, it's a great opportunity for businesses that are looking to come to Colorado or expand their presence. We have an export accelerator program to really help businesses that want to export out of Colorado on a global level. Next slide. And then I just wanted to touch on a couple of partners. So I mentioned Energize Colorado, but then I also want to make sure our Manufacturers Edge, who's been a huge part of this presentation, but we look to them as our absolute rock solid primary partner for supporting manufacturing in Colorado. They're definitely the go-to people. So we work hand in hand with Manufacturers Edge. They're really our primary manufacturing experts. And so we have a great relationship with them, and we lean on them heavily for helping us to provide assistance to our manufacturers. And then the Economic Development Council of Colorado, they provide a lot of resources to both OEdit and to our local manufacturing businesses. They've got a lot of things right now with food systems, really trying to look at ways for us to engage with our communities and as far as economic development resources, and just be a little bit more providing some mentorship. Next slide. And then lastly, like I said, I'm one of 3 representatives here for rural Colorado. Kat Pappenbrock, who is our Western representative, we sort of share this corner of Colorado, so we're both available. And then Greg Thomason is our Eastern representative. And I think that's it.
Thank you so much, Tom. And please do, if anybody's listening here and you have questions for OEdit or Manufacturers Edge, please put them in the Q&A section. We have these wonderful resources with us here locally in La Plata right here, right now. So please use them. Such good information. Moving right along. So we have yet another amazing visitor with us today, Sandy Molinen. I probably pronounced that wrong as well, but that's going to be the nature of today. Welcome, Sandy. She is the Vice President of Operations at the World Trade Center Denver, where she oversees daily operations and programs of the organization and helps develop and implement strategic initiatives and looks for new areas of growth. She brings experience in international business development, manufacturing, and international trade finance to the position. I look forward to hearing what you have to say, kind of going at 30,000 feet. Welcome, Sandy.
Well, thank you very much, Dan. And thanks, Emily and the La Plata Economic Development Alliance for including us as a resource for manufacturers in the region. For those of you who don't know the World Trade Center, we are a business network and service organization, and our work is dedicated exclusively to the international business success of companies throughout Colorado and the surrounding Rocky Mountain region. We are part of a global network of over 330 World Trade Centers around the world in 100 countries. We are also a very close strategic partner of Manufacturers Edge, and we provide the international business support services for Manufacturers Edge clients throughout the state. Next slide, Emily, please. So what do? We deliver practical international trade knowledge that has real world application that's delivered by subject matter experts and consultants with firsthand experience across many different industries and disciplines. These experts and consultants are sourced from our extensive global and local network. We curate knowledge specific to company needs and personally guide you through your path of success at every stage of your international business development. So next slide, please. So what have we been seeing during this past year of COVID and economic slowdown in Colorado? We've seen really clients looking for different strategies for growth and cost savings. And I want to share with you a couple case studies of how international trade can help you pivot and ride out the pandemic uncertainties. So this first strategy that's up here is really about growing your international customer base to really grow your bottom line. And there are several success stories in Colorado, but I'll share with you all one that we've been recently working with, a Colorado-based consumer good. I won't tell you who this is, but a manufacturer. They reached out to us in late April and May this year as they were experiencing a loss of domestic orders. Their sales strategy is really to use distributors throughout the United States. And they were seeing a slowdown in those domestic orders. So they had had some success in some one-off sales to international customers, and they thought that they really wanted to further explore how you go about strategically entering markets outside the United States to, again, grow their bottom line. So we really worked with them and helped identify a couple different target international markets. So they weren't just using the shotgun approach and trying to serve every single international customer that was, making an inquiry on their website or reaching out and wanting to distribute their goods throughout whatever country they were from. So we really helped them develop a targeted strategy in May that really identified, it happened to be Canada and the United Kingdom, that we identified as really having good potential markets, being good markets for this particular product. And then we worked with them to help identify potential distributors in those two markets. They sent sample sales in July, and by August they had orders from two pretty major distributors in both the United Kingdom and Canada. And they did finally report at the end of Q3 that 40% of their Q3 sales ended up being international, whereas back in Q1 of 2020, only 10% of their sales were international. So that's a great success story of how they looked outside the United States for new customers, and that has really helped them maintain their manufacturing presence here in Colorado, and also kept their employment levels at the same rate as they were kind of losing some of their domestic sales. So that's one strategy we've seen customers using throughout this economic slowdown. Next slide, please, Emily. And I'll talk a little bit about a second strategy that we've seen companies implement, and that's, of course, to find new or additional global suppliers. I think Juan Emilio and Marie were talking a little bit about supply chain issues that pandemic has really brought to the forefront. A lot of that is, that this is a global world, and some of our components and suppliers are coming from around the world. And I think another thing that every manufacturer on this call understands is that for the past few years, the US trade policy has really been about trying to use tariffs as a lever to try to level the playing field in many international markets who maybe aren't playing so fairly. And so that tariff strategy isn't always the most predictable nor the most cost benefit for US manufacturers. And so we've worked with a number of different companies in Colorado to try to find sources and resources outside of countries like China. For example, we worked with a great Denver-based manufacturer who was using Chinese steel in some of their production, and they knew that they needed to get out of China just because they couldn't continue to be profitable with having to pay 25+ tariff percentage on some of these parts that were coming in. And so we helped them vet new steel suppliers. These suppliers happen to be out of India, and we worked with our international network to really hone in on some of the capabilities of some manufacturers in India. And we taught the company how to perform due diligence that is a little bit different maybe when trying to vet international vendors than it is when you're working with local vendors. So that's a success story that I would say really helped the company switch vendors in a relatively quick time period. So that took about 1 full quarter to get those switched, but they are seeing cost savings and they've got a great vendor now. So next slide, please, Emily. And really, again, another resource for manufacturers throughout Colorado is our help desk that we staff with trained and experienced international trade professionals. So if you want assistance or have an international trade question, anything from what the heck is my HTS code to, what is the tariff rate on this component that I'm looking to bring in, that help desk can be a great resource for manufacturers throughout the state. So I would encourage you all to use that. And that's the best way to get a hold of the World Trade Center.
Sandy, thank you so much for being here. It's truly a global world right now, and having the World Trade Center in Denver is a huge help to our local organizations, I'm sure. So please do note her contact info and utilize that. Which brings us to our final speaker of the day. He is a local, and he's the founder of Alpine Leadership. And he was doing a lot of leadership training and classes, and they've also had to pivot, a buzzword that I will hopefully never use again. But for all intents and purposes, he had to make a decision on what to do, and it seems that he turned into recruitment. It's actually what carried his business through 2020. And so they are now a full service talent and development and recruitment firm based right here in La Plata County. Mark is always happy to follow up with anyone in support of his presentation today, and will be happy to answer questions or kick around any ideas that you have. But for today, he's going to talk about managing all the stress we're dealing with. Thanks for being here, Mark.
You're welcome, Dan. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so we're going to talk about three things here today: time management, relationships, and centering. So what's that all about? So let's jump into the next slide and talk about centering. Talking about time management. So keep advancing for me if you would. There is no such thing of time management. Yeah, I had these all phased in where I thought I would be controlling it. But time just is, right? It exists, and we don't manage it. We really manage commitments. We kind of miss that. We're looking at the clock as opposed to what are our top commitments. Keep advancing. And go ahead to the next slide. So it's time to really step back and reassess our own commitments. It's a good end of the year activity, right? Seems natural. So we're going to go through a quick matrix way for you to do this. So in the next slide, I'll keep advancing, please. We'll talk about how you're going to identify what your priorities are. And you're going to assign a percentage of your workday to them. And we're going to introduce this notion about self-care should be a part of that. Right? We're still in it here for a marathon. There's no quick solution just yet. So let's make sure we talk about that. Let's go to the next slide. So here's an example, right? And I can send this to you, a template of this for you to fill in if you'd like. So I'm going to suggest that you put in two things at the top of your list. One is self-care. That is, whatever it is you need in that, be it exercise, meditation, and so forth, and you make that as one of your key categories. I'm also going to suggest that you put some social intimacy in with your team. So what used to happen when we all gathered is this would happen naturally around a coffee pot, or people would go out to lunch or whatever, and they would continue to build those relationships. So that's kind of gone, right? At least in a natural sense. So I'm going to suggest, well, we're going to have to put some attention to that. And then you could continue to list all the rest of your percentages. It should add up to 100. And so I'm just using this as an example, right? This might be our current priorities. So, and then at the bottom, note how many hours you're working per week. So I'm imagining 50 hours a week, right? So let's go to the next slide. And in the future, right, it could look like this, right? So we could look to maybe add 5% of our time to tending to our team. And then in that, I'm going to have to give up something else. So maybe I'm giving up some time in process management. Maybe I need to stop problem solving so much. So I'd reduce that, right? Now, we haven't solved it yet here. We're just saying, what are our new commitments for how we're using time, right? That is, it's commitment management, not time management, okay? And then, you know, at the bottom might be, hey, I'm going to make a commitment to only work 45 hours a week instead of 50 for sustainability and my own personal needs and relationships. Next slide. All right, so in that, you're going to have to really look at 2 to 3 key changes that you'll make to rebalance time. Don't think about 10 of them. Pick what are the top 2 or 3 commitments that maybe you need to alter here. You might need to break a commitment, right? That sounds bad. We break commitments, but we do it in a dignified way. We do it in a intentful way, and we supply the necessary backup to do it, because unless we break a commitment, we can't make a new commitment, right? Or else we're just going to go back to 60, 70 hours a week, and that's not sustainable. So then you have to think about over the next 30 days, what new practices you're going to be in. That is, how are you going to act and behave and converse with others? Next slide. So the need for social intimacy, right? So we're getting into the relationships piece here of our session. We're social beings. We're not machines. We're not mechanicals. And part of why people go to work is for this social relationships. Please advance. We can't command people to just be more socially intimate, right? We have to create opportunities for that to occur. Advance. So we can build frameworks and openings for connections to occur. Go ahead and advance. Sometimes we have the quieter people on our team who we don't think, we presuppose that they don't want to be involved, and they just might want to be involved in a different way, in a quieter way. But those people also want social intimacy. You know, I don't mean anything like personal when I talk about that, but intimacy at an appropriate business level. Advance. Okay, so for now, we're still in a Zoom world, like it or not. We're probably, 6 to 9 months out until a significant portion of the population is vaccinated. So we have to re-energize this. Okay, people are weary of it, and sorry, I don't have the inoculation, for that, right? No pun intended. Advance. So we have to look at Zoom meetings both as a way to coordinate, get things done, but also as a platform to build social relationships. Advance. Okay. So the first thing is we have to listen more. At the beginning, we spoke more and we listened less. We had to, right? No choice. We had to sort of take charge of the ship and avoid the iceberg. But now it's time to turn it around, and it's time for us to listen more. Another thing we may forget as leaders is to share our own emotions, right? We're not robots. And if we share some of our own vulnerabilities, right? Not private, but vulnerabilities, other people will be likely to do the same. And then we also may forget to just openly and intentfully share our positive feelings, right? How we're building excitement and all that, that we can presume that other people think that about us, but why not say it out loud, okay? So next slide. Oh, okay. Well, there were more slides, but there we go. Yeah, so we didn't get into the specific ideas about building social intimacy, and I apologize for that. There were, another 10 slides to go through, and they're not here with us.
I'm sorry, Mark, they didn't come through. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Would you like to go ahead and just talk about that right now?
Yeah, I'll talk about some things without the slide. And I know that's hard. If somebody wants the slides, just send me an email. And that was on the last slide, my email address, but we'll figure out how to get that to you. So yeah, let me scroll down on my slideshow. Okay, so here's some ideas that you could do for social intimacy. You can, some of these may sound pedantic, but we've got to create some frameworks to get people reconnected. So you can do a remote contest. You can have a photo contest, a costume contest, where everybody shares that and everybody votes, and then you award some small prizes, right? It's just about the fun and about people being energized and winning. Another one is to do some level of show and tell, right? You might introduce the dog that's lying next to you. When your 4-year-old keeps coming in and out of the Zoom meeting, you might stop and introduce her, right? You could have a picture on the back of your desk that you say, hey, that picture is of me. And yeah, I learned mountain climbing and here's the picture from it. It allows us all to share that little bit of framework, something about us that other people can then resonate and connect, right? To not see us as robots. Here's a new one, right? Well, somebody's done the white elephant gifts at Christmas, but you could just do it virtually. You could go onto Amazon or some other platform and find something absurd. You know, okay, I picked Mark for his, so I'm going to find him an ugly sweater, right? Or I'm going to find this goofy thing, and I'm just going to take the picture. I'm not going to buy it for him. I'm going to take the picture of it and send it to him, and perhaps say, here's why I picked this and why I thought this was funny for you, right? There's also, you can do this on Zoom really easily, is each person can speak 2 truths and 1 lie. Now, many of us have done this before, but really what you do is you pick 3 things about yourself, and one of them was a lie, but you make them as outlandish as possible in your own personal, what was something outlandish too, and then people have to try to figure out what's that one that's really the lie. And then we learn 2 truths about people, right? Oh gosh, Mark's a mountain climber. I didn't know that, right? Mark's been in National Geographic magazine or whatever that is, right? So the idea here is to just make it fun, see if people can guess this right. And you can award small gifts or not, it doesn't really matter. Then you could also have everybody share an achievement or something that's going well. Right? We're so focused on the pivots, we're so focused on what else do we have to do, that we could pause and just in a meeting everybody share one thing that's running well, right? And then as we move towards the other end of the pandemic, sometime perhaps in March or so, you could also do this. You could say, what's something you plan to do when the pandemic ends, right? I've never been to Yosemite, right? Yosemite National Park. So that's on my bucket list for this year or whatever. And this will help people get a little bit out of, hey, I'm stuck here, to being able to see a better, more hopeful future, right? So that's it on that part 2, right? And is how to have some social contact in your meetings. And then the last one is centering, and I'll just go through this real quickly. So centering is our most important activity, our most important call upon in leadership, right? Because we're the ones that are, trying to keep a steady hand on the helm. Right? And people need to see us not as robotics. I don't mean a robotic centering, but hey, Mark's got this, right? Mark's got this. And so here's 3 things that you can do every single day, many times a day, just to get a little more centered, right? There could be a lot more to this, but I'm going to give you three ideas. One is breathe into your belly and then let it out. And you're all on mute. You could do this. Just breathe all the way into your belly. Nobody's looking. You could press against your belt or whatever. And then instead of an exhale, you just let it out, right? It's just a, right? And then you just let that sink into you, right? And you can do this many times a day. If you did it and didn't quite get the relaxation, then do it again, right? And do it again until you go, oh yeah, there it was. And then how did I exhale or what was I thinking or doing where I felt a little more chill, right? Not sedate. We're not sedating as leaders. We're trying to be more open and available and to be ready for when the waves come. Here's another one piece you can do to center, right? And this sounds weird, but trust me. One is to soften your eyes. We're spending a lot of time at computers and we tend to squint during the day with our eyes. And, it just gets intense, right? So here's how you soften your eyes is imagine that behind your eyes, it's getting softer. Yeah, this sounds weird, Mark, but try it again, and a lot of people can connect with this one. The last one is to put your feet flat on the floor. We get to crossing your legs and slouching and all that while we're sitting in front of Zoom meetings. And so you just put your feet flat on the floor and then allow your backside to really feel the seat bottom and then your back to really feel the backside of the chair. This is really useful for a call that, hey, maybe it's going a little sideways. And maybe I need to come back to center this way. And we're feeling the grounding of our feet, the strength of the earth below us. We really allow our backside to sink into the chair as it's solid and really feel the back of the chair. And from here, we have a lot more availability in our thinking, in our listening. New opportunities can come up just if we're centered more. And again, it's not a sedateness. It's not a solving of anything. It's just rather, I have more power and strength to be able to hear what people really want to tell me. Right? When people see us this way online, they're more likely to say, hey, now is that chance I can tell Mark what I really need to tell him. Yeah. So here in summary, 3 things. One is we don't manage time, we manage commitments. So reassess what your commitments are. Second thing is people want to belong, right? We're desperate and eager for this. And so figure out ways to create more openings for that belongingness. And then the third thing is it's our responsibility to center before any conversation. And it takes just a moment to center. One of those 3 things I just went through with you, one of those will connect with you. All right, that's the end of my portion of the presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you for being here. And I think just with everything that's weighing on us, regardless of what sector you're in, those are all really good ideas on how to keep us centered moving through the holidays and starting the next year. So I'm looking forward to Q1. I don't know about you, but thank you again. So that wraps our 2020 series. We are really looking for ideas on how to continue these webinars. If there are ideas that you have from a listener standpoint on what sectors we could be highlighting, what speakers we could bring in to speak to how the economic development side of things are going, whether that's restaurants or real estate or retail on Main, which we actually did last month, and it was a world of information. But we are all ears from our membership. We want to hear what else you would like to know or hear about so that we can continue to work together to be a better economic situation for La Plata County. Thanks again for coming. Thank you to all our speakers. I'll open it up to any questions for any of our speakers that we still have online. Do we have any questions or comments regarding what you heard today? I dropped Mark's email in the chat if you are interested in emailing Mark. We can also get his website in there as well so you can see some of his content. I have a question for Jim Mackay. So with this pivot on the cans and other things going on, what is the one thing coming from a production standpoint that would assist you from the local standpoint? Because I know we have cogs in so many things, supply chains, travel, delivery, and so Scott Fab answers a lot of amazing questions for our location. So what is the one thing that you're really working on into 2021?
Basically, I would say 2 things. One is increasing our capacity, getting better about our manufacturing, and we've tapped Manufacturers Edge for some of that stuff in the past, and we actually hired a former Manufacturers Edge consultant as our COO about 6 months ago. So that's helping there. And then honestly, we are trying to find smart people and draw them to Durango, mostly mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, and ERP people. And Betsy's nodding. I'm sure she's in the same boat. So that's really what it is right now, is preparing for, I think that smart companies lean towards challenges like COVID and try and prepare for what's going to happen on the other side. I feel that's what we're trying to do by continuing to put a smart team in place to go after it. And because what we're, the challenge with, and why we don't have enough mechanical engineers is that this move to cans has created these opportunities for all these innovative pieces of equipment that we just don't have the capacity to actually design and create.
Insightful. That's wild. So talent and bringing them to our area. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? We're all ears while we have them. I could sit here and ask you all questions because I personally have interest, but I don't want to waste anybody's time. So thank you so much for being here. This has been enlightening and a wealth of information. We really appreciate your time. Thank you from the Economic Development Alliance of La Plata County. Happy holidays, be safe, and we look forward to seeing you next month.
Thank you.